Let's play and review Star Trek Hidden Evil. Can you tell me, what is the difference between Star Trek and Resident Evil? Quite a lot actually. I know it's a silly question, but is there a way we could actually combine those two game settings? And would you know, someone actually tried. It was well-known Activision with Presto Studios. Never heard of it. At first glance, it seemed to succeed in that experiment, and what we got is not a play-worthy game, but a fragile, frightening cop which isn't aware of its existence. Star Trek Hidden Evil is a 3D mission-based adventure game with action elements, which is a pretty imaginative concept, but in a final product it doesn't work that well. According to Wikipedia, Presto Studios had only 1 year to develop the entire game. You can see it in the first part of the game. There are logical puzzles and exploring the environment, while the second part brings you almost nothing but frustrations and breath of relief when it's all finally over. This is a Star Trek, how can it be so bad? Let's play and review. Star Trek Hidden Evil takes place 9 months after the Star Trek Insurrection movie. It describes how Picard and the crew of USS Enterprise saved the people of the planet Baku, endowed with an internal life thanks to the energy emitted by the metaphases fields around the planet. Also, there were Sona who wanted that source of energy for themselves. It all ended with the Baku inviting the defeated Sona to establish the colony on their planet. Soon after, the Starfleet established the space station called Outpost 40 near the planet. The game begins with Ensign Sovak, a young man who grew up on the planet Vulcan, who was sent to Outpost 40. His service on station is interrupted by news of the discovery of excavations unknown origin beneath the Sona colony. Baku invited Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Commander Data to investigate the findings, and Ensign Sovak is tasked with helping them. It turns out artifacts to be of an unknown ancient race, which will revolt the Sonas and later even the Romulans. The entire game is divided into several missions with specific goals, such as starting some kind of device, finding some person or something, and so on. These objects will be given by Captain Picard, with whom you'll be in a constant contact using a standard Trek communicator. Sovak will report back to Picard on everything he comes across, and Picard will give him new orders accordingly. You can contact Commander Data to ask him for some hints. But you can't do anything outside the given framework, and the whole game will be appointed in that direction. If this seems linear and unimaginative to you, you're right. The degree of freedom and immersion is very slim or none, and the player constantly feels as he's been pushed in that particular direction. It's impossible to do anything that is not predetermined action, and we knew that this is not a classic adventure game. Speaking of that, most of the puzzles in the game could not be called puzzles because they are quite simple and straightforward. There is no point and click interface, which means you can click on an item and hear Sovak's opinion about it. You cannot take an object from the environment like in the way it's solved in the classic adventures. These objects will simply float above the ground like in old shooter games. It is enough to reach them and they will be automatically added in your inventory. In there, you will often be needed to use standard Starfleet equipment. First, there is your phaser, which you will have to use against various creatures and enemies. Interesting to mention that there is no option to adjust its power level, stunt or kill. This way, it's only used for killing, which is rather strange because the weapon is completely unsuitable for that. Not only it does require exceptional accuracy, but also it reloads very slowly and does not have a particularly high destructive power. In addition to phaser, Ensign Sovak is one of the few people who has learned the Vulcan nerve pinch, a technique of unconsciousness by pressing on the neck nerves. This is very rarely used in a game, only in the last part, so the only thing you will care is your shooting weapon. Now it's time for explaining what's all about that Resident Evil lookalike. I'm sure that you watch all game clips in video walkthrough and figure it yourself. Feeling of movement is more in a style of older Resident Evil than Tomb Raider tank controls. All locations are static and there is no changing camera angles in that same location. Movement is only via keyboard without the possibility of changing the configuration of the keys. In fact, you cannot change anything. There are no other game options: resolution, graphics option, subtitles, sound. Sightseeing and solving puzzles at slow pace can be enjoyable, but watch out when the combat emerges. Combat is certainly the most poorly executed part of the game. When you are attacked by a humanoid company out of the blue, the interface and camera angle won't change at all, compared to the situation when you are solving a puzzle. Aiming is literally impossible. Included auto-aiming doesn't help you much, especially considering the total ineffectiveness of a phaser. Small creatures like bugs and scorpions won't do much damage, and there is a possibility to dodge their attacks. But later ones are a real nightmare. Final stages of the game test your patience and nerves with worst possible developer decisions. Romulan spaceship contains mass of repetitive, time-consuming, narrow corridors without a map and lots of dead ends. It is there, and only there, where you play stealthy using Vulcan nerve pinch. USS Enterprise level will make you furious. Even more narrow, repetitive, random generated corridors. Really? They call themselves developers? But with annoying and jumping aliens to shoot with a phaser. They tend to stick close to you so you cannot dodge, and they kill you in a second. Even made a paper map to ease my progress and finish the game, which is already a fairly short. Oh yeah, did I mention there are no checkpoints? I learned that in a hard way, so remember to save often. Oh, I need a break. How about a nice cup of coffee? Meet the #1 Patreon or PayPal alternative donation website. Unlike previously mentioned systems, there is no need to create profile account. You can post and donate as an anonymous. You can support me by buying a coffee, which represents a small money donation. You can make even a one-time donation or as many as you want. Be a channel supporter. Help me to make more videos. For more details, check in a video description down below. Now, back to review. Despite all cons in mention, a few things can save this game from being a total flop. While the pre-rendered locations can be beautiful at first glance, you will notice a certain lack of details. This is common at combining 2D and 3D graphics. The 3D models are relatively well designed. The only known characters, Picard and Data, look a lot like the actors who play them in the series. Their voices were taken care of by real actors, so they sound and look very realistic. There are only a few cutscenes, but they will immerse you into Star Trek universe. In terms of music, the excellent cinematic soundtrack should especially be praised, although it comes to the fore only in certain situations where it significantly increases the atmosphere. It's unclear what Activision wanted to achieve with this game. It seems that at the beginning of development it was planned as a classic 3D adventure, and then action elements were quickly added so the game isn't finished properly. If you are a Star Trek fan or don't mind tank controls, fixed camera angles, and an occasionally creepy vibe that are reminiscent of early Resident Evil games, Hidden Evil is worth a look. Anyway, the conclusion is clear. This game could have been something far better if it just stayed in development for a few more months. Thank you for watching my video. If you like it, click on subscribe and click on bell icon to receive notification when I upload new videos. Also, check on Twitter and Facebook about news and updates. Thank you and see you again soon.